Hello, in this video, I'm going to go through the 10 cards that I would add to the Wise Mothman. Now, none of these cards were printed into the Mutant Menace Precon, but these cards are just good upgrades to the Wise Mothman, even if you didn't start with a Precon. Head Shredder is 2 green for a 5/5. The second block of text in this card is what I care about. Whenever one or more land cards are put into your from your library, put them onto the battlefield tapped. Now, our radiation counter sit, beginning of our pre-combat main phase. If you have any rad counters, mill them any cards. For each non-land card milled this way, you lose a life and a rad counter. But the whole time that we're milling and trying to hit non-lands or lands, depending if you want to lose, but you mostly just want to have a high amount of radiation or rad counters, it's just going to let you take those lands you're milling and put them into play tapped, which is going to generate a ton of value. Now, the Wise Mothman is already one of those snowball-y, maybe mothball-y decks that's just going to accrue a ton of value over the course of the game, and Head Shredder really does that. Evolution Witness. Now, the Wise Mothman enters or attacks, gets a rad counter. Whenever one or more non-land cards are milled, put a ++ counter on each of up to X target creatures, where X is the number of non-land cards milled this way. Evolution Witness says whenever one or more ++ counters are put on this card, return target permanent from your graveyard to your hand. So you can choose to put a ++ counter on each of X's target creatures. Almost always choose Evolution Witness to be one of them, and the cards you're milling with Mothman and with your radiation, as long as they are permanents, you can get one back every turn with Evolution Witness. The Wise Mothman also doesn't say whenever one or more non-land cards are milled with radiation. It's just whenever one or more non-land cards are milled. So if you have other ways to mill or your opponent's mill, you can put ++ and counters on things. Remember, the Wise Mothman, it's anyone mills, you get counters. You can have Evolution Witness going off on everyone's upkeep or pre-combat main phase. This is an upkeep trigger. Rad is not an upkeep trigger. You can just keep getting things back from your graveyard. Now, if you're dispersing a ton of ++ and counters around, we might as well take advantage of those counters with cards like Wave Goodbye. Return each creature without a ++ and counter on it to its owner's hand. It's going to very quickly just be a one-sided board wipe, right? The Wise Mothman, a couple turns, not even of your turns, but just turns around the table. It's going to mill a ton. Wave Goodbyes is going to return everything out of the way, and you can attack with all of your creatures you put ++ and counters on. Herald of the Secret Streams, 4 mana for a 2/3. Creatures you control with ++ and counters on them can't be blocked. Again, you're putting ++ and counters on things left, and you put it on ++ counters on the things right. Left and right. Get it? Right and left. So making these things unblockable is just going to let you hit your opponents hard. And then pre-combat main phase, those rad counters are having people lose life when they mill a non-land card. So just hitting them for life with unblockable rad counters, themselves dealing damage, other attack effects, you're going to really notice how quickly your opponent's life totals are going down. Dreamtide Whale. 2 and a blue for a vanishing creature. It enters with 2 time counters. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter from it. When the last is removed, sacrifice it. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, Proliferate. You might see where I'm going with here. I'm going 2 things. Rad counters and ++ counters are both things that you can proliferate. And so you need to add more good proliferation to your deck. And Dreamtide Whale is a card that can trigger on most people's turns. In Commander, the majority of players are trying to cast more than 1 spell. 2, 3, 4 spells a turn, honestly. Maybe a mono green deck's getting up to 4, but non-stompy decks are getting to 2 and being happy. So being able to proliferate both the vanishing counters to keep the Dreamtide Whale around, increasing the number of radiation counters on players, putting another ++ counter on each creature you've already put a ++ counter on. You can proliferate effects if you built the Wise Mothman that way. Just having access to more proliferation is very good. Ripples of Potential is another proliferate spell that does more than just proliferate for 2 mana. Proliferate, then choose any number of permanents you control that had a counter put on this way, and they phase out. In my opinion, this card is better than Wave Goodbye, because in response to a board wipe, I guess it's not the same as Wave Goodbye. Wave Goodbye is a board wipe, and this is in response to a board wipe. So they're different cards. But 2 mana is what I'm looking to spend on a Proliferate already. 2 mana is like what I play in my Atraxa Infect deck. I'm looking for 2 mana Proliferates. Anything more than that needs to generate a lot of value. And Ripples of Potential really does that. Whenever your opponent casts a board wipe, you just cast Ripples of Potential in response, make everyone's radiation counters go up, put more ++ counters on your things, and then they just disappear. Very good card. Evolution Sage. You're playing green, you're going to have extra lands enter, so why not have extra proliferations going on? I've already talked about how good proliferation is. I usually play more proliferation in your Wise Mothman decks. Evolution Stage also super cheap, under $1, and just one land a turn. Maybe your Head Shredder getting your additional lands. Any of your Farseek type ramp, good card. Sir Conrad the Grim is 3 black for a 5/4 whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard. Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. So it does a lot of things. It is a lot of instances will deal 1 damage, but the one that we care about is a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, like Millie. And it also doesn't say just one of your creatures enter your graveyard other than the battlefield. It's just if a creature card is put into a graveyard. So whatever you're going around the table and the rad counters are triggered, causing everyone to mill. You mill some cards, you take some damage. You mill some cards, you take some damage. You mill some cards, you take a damage. And it's just whenever they deal combat damage, like creatures just die in combat. Maybe you exile cards from your graveyard one bit time, or just exile anything. Sir Conrad's going to do a lot of damage, and you're going to take a lot of instances of 1 damage with rad counters, with Sir Conrad, all around. Might as well build an Obnixilis deck at that point. Mind Crink is 2 for an artifact. Whenever an opponent loses life, that player mills that many cards. So the Wise Mothman, maybe you already have 1, 2, 3 plus and plus encounters on it. You attack her player without flying protection, and they mill 6. 1 or more non-land cards are milled. Put a number of a plus counts equal to the number of non-land cards milled this way. You're making them mill 6. It's probably going to be 4, and that's 4 plus and plus counter up to 4 creatures. The Wise Mothman's rated rad counters. For each non-land card milled this way, you lose a life and a rad counter. Whatever they lose the life from successfully hitting non-land cards, they're going to take a million more cards. And then Blood Chief Ascension is 1 black for an enchantment super strong card. It's expensive, but at the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you may put a quest counter on it. With the rad counters, that's going to go up very quickly. And whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if Blood Chief's Ascension has 3 or more quest counters on it, you may have that player lose 2 life. If you do, you gain 2 life. And that's just whenever a card is put into a graveyard from anywhere. You're milling with the rad counters. It doesn't care about non-lands or land. It's just in general, you're milling yourself and you're milling your opponents with the rad counter. So, super good card on this deck. It's going to be super easy to trigger because they're taking damage from the rad counters. Those are the 10 cards I would include in the Wise Mothman Commander deck. You let me know your thoughts on these cards in the comments below. I hope you have a good rest of your day and may your top decks be ever in your favor. Thank you.